going on, everybody? Culturedog Sam Hatch with more YouTube videos. This is the next in my series of Laserdisc Spotlight releases. You've seen this film probably multiple times, and you've seen it in my collection. You've probably seen it in your collection. But this specific pressing I was interested in getting into a little bit. This is the 90s. I'm trying to remember what year this... 92 was this particular pressing. But the early 90s version of the Fox Special Widescreen Edition of Star Wars, also known as Episode 4, New Hope. And this was the best way to get the film. For the longest time, it was the first time here domestically it was available in widescreen. Now, of course, it's been reissued multiple times. But this particular version has been pressed a bunch of times by different plants. And this one is a Mitsubishi pressing, I believe, from 1992. We'll get into some of the technical features or lack thereof a little bit later. But it is a quality release and not too bad. I mean, I figured I'd spin it up again. If you haven't seen Star Wars, it is the classic tale of Luke Skywalker, who was, Deke Starkiller or Luke Starkiller during different versions of the giraffes. It's the, hero farm boy looking to live a life of adventure, and all of his friends are sent off to fight against an evil empire, and he's stuck, working on the farm. Definitely a little bit of autobiographical element to it, being George Lucas, this kind of kid from the middle of nowhere out in the sticks who was just into racing cars and stuff like that. And then fate has it that Luke Skywalker ends up falling into the scenarios he's been yearning for the whole time, though not in the way he had hoped or prescribed for himself, and it turns into a big giant heaping space opera of fun with Han Solo, the affable smuggler, and his co-pilot Chewbacca, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, the kind of wise mystic that may possibly be full of crap, and then Princess Leia. I love the I believe this was Greg Hildebrandt, or was this the other? But the poster art was, always over the top with the ripped abs, and nobody actually looked like they did in the film itself. But this is gorgeous cover art and smokes the Faces release. Sorry, Faces release, but that stuff's pretty lame compared to this. This is pretty gorgeous. The top frame here is a little wasted on the, on the real estate of the artwork, but. So yeah, Star Wars, it's classic. You've seen it a billion times. If you didn't enjoy it back in 77 or the first time you saw it, you're probably still not going to enjoy it now. But for what it did it amazingly well and created a whole generation of fans like myself. So I can watch it any day of the week. Now, Star Wars on video has a lot of issues, mostly because of noise reduction, like digital noise reduction, that creates as many artifacts as it does solve problems. And this one is largely bereft of any of that kind of digital tinkering, so it's actually nice seeing it, even though it is loaded with dirt and all sorts of artifacts on the frame. At least they're organic artifacts. It's from a dirty frame, as opposed to some sort of digital tinkering that makes stormtroopers have four eyes or erases somebody's legs when they're walking down the street. So it is nice seeing it refreshingly clean in a dirty way. And color-wise, it's a little bit stronger. There seemed to be a little bit more of a red push maybe in the Faces version. This one seems a little bit more natural. It's very bright. The brightness levels seem to be jacked up a little bit from the later releases. In fact, I think there's a comparison piece online that shows how the films just kept getting darker and darker in their different incarnations. But yeah, so there are definitely a few different pressings out there. So let's check out the packaging, and we'll talk more about that. Yes. It's a little bit too much wasted on the stereo extended play and all that stuff, but it does have a really cool gatefold. Killer photo of Darth Vader and the stormtroopers invading the Rebel blockade runner from the beginning of the film, and a lot of write-ups on there. Even more information on the backside, so gives you some reading material for sure. But yeah, I mean, this cover is great. Pardon some of the kind of rubware from before when I wasn't smart enough to have polypropylene bags, but it's still shiny enough. Not that many chapter stops, including lots of chapter 0 kind of stuff. It was always weird when like a whole portion of a movie would be chapter 0. But yeah, very, very minimal on the chapter stops. some interesting write-ups about, the characters and the film itself, and a few still photos down at the bottom with the Jawas and Han Solo, Princess Leia. So yeah, a little behind the scenes stuff. Nothing like you're gonna see in the definitive collection box set, but just enough to keep you entertained while you're waiting, to watch the film. It is PCM Pro Logic, and this is before THX. The faces and the definitive collection are THX certified. This, however, is not. It gives a little bit of rundown on the story on the back side, and the printing date is 1992 for this pressing. I mentioned before that there were different versions, and some of them have laser rod apparently as well. This one does not, thankfully. But I believe maybe it was a Pioneer. I'm trying to remember, there was a USA one. But it does mention this was manufactured disc-wise in Japan, but the jacket was printed in the USA. But yeah, there were a couple different pressings. This was a later one, and they all suffer except for the last one, which I believe came out in 1993 from Technodisc. And unfortunately, Technodisc is a plant that had a lot of crosstalk, especially in their CLV discs. So you won't have the problems with this one, but you will have some visual crosstalk. But the problems on the pressings of this is that the aspect ratio shrinks as the film progresses. I don't know how nobody even noticed that until internet, aficionados of Star Wars were trying to put together like a best of cut, because George Lucas wasn't delivering it for them, closest to the original theatrical presentation. And they noticed that as this film progressed, the image just kept getting narrower and narrower. And yes, I actually fired this up on my projector on my wall and had visual markers on the top and the bottom of the frame. And as it progressed, yeah, you could just keep seeing it shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Usually a little bit before every reel change, that kind of thing. So it does not have an accurate aspect ratio. So it does look good, and it's got that problem. I don't believe the other two in the series have this problem. It's unique to Star Wars. Sound, again, it's good. This film always sounded a little thinner than the other two. There's definitely some brightness to it, and at times it can be a little shrill if you've got it cranked up over your speakers. They did their best to kind of tame that in the THX versions that came out later, and put a little bit more emphasis on the bass during like the tractor beams scenes and that kind of stuff. So this doesn't sound as good as Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, but even Darth Vader doesn't have that like really deep baritone voice. He's very, I'm Darth Vader, that kind of thing. Take her away, I'm Darth Vader. Hey, not quite that bad, but closer to it. But yeah, you can't fault this release, except for the fact that the aspect ratio shrinks, but it's definitely watchable any day of the week, and glad to have it as part of my collection. All right, we'll see you back here for some more Laserdisc videos.